Welcome to an expansive life conversation with results architect SANDE GOLGART. Your journey to realignment from fear to freedom starts now. Live an expansive life.
Living and kind of share some of those things that I've learned, and then talk with our amazing guests. Joe and Hillary will come on and we'll kind of riff on some of these topics. So we'll still dive into it. And I think, my whole intention today is to see if I can share some of the things that I've learned throughout the past year that have really helped me embrace, live and allow for a much more expansive life. And I think what better opportunity than to welcome in the space that I've been provided by Dave canceling or postponing. So he will be joining us on the 28th. More details to come. But he did want to make sure he got on to the broadcast. So he will be here on the 28th. But before I dive into the topics that I had prepared, I do want to make sure that we're all set, grounded, present in today's meeting. So I'll go ahead and lead through a really quick box breath, 3 quick box breaths to allow us all to be present. So I'll go ahead and initiate it, and feel free to follow along. We'll go 4 breaths in, or 4 count. Inhale through the nose, hold for 4 seconds, and then exhale for 8. And we'll do that 3 times. So if you can, with me, go inhale for 2, 3, 4, and then hold for 2, 3, 4, and then exhale for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then inhale again, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, and then exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Last one, in for 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, and then exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we have arrived. So welcome, everyone. For those of you just tuning in, we were scheduled to be live right now with David Meltzer. His assistant said, due to unforeseen circumstances, he could not make it this morning. So we're rolling with it. And in that, I had 3 things, amazing things that popped up for me that I want to share, that just, again, revealed itself to me when I heard that Dave couldn't make it this morning. So the first thing was, I just was amazed immediately how much it put me into a state of really having compassion for Dave. Like, Dave's so busy, he's got so much going on. It's got to kill him to have to, cancel on an appointment and then have to reschedule. And then to say, also what an amazing blessing it's giving, me the space and the opportunity to connect with everyone. But I was able to recognize for myself how different I was able to receive that information today than I would have been a year ago, certainly 5 years ago, where I know I was very much looking forward to having Dave on the show. Dave's an amazing guy. He was the CEO of Steinberg sports. He's the person that they wrote the movie Jerry Maguire about, or he ran that firm that it was modeled after. He's had an amazing career, net worth of over $100 million, and then lost it all, and then found himself, dropped his identity, and kind of through a new connection to life has really found his way back by helping people and creating more space and leading a significantly more expansive life. So it's going to be an amazing conversation. I was very much looking forward to it. But three things came up for me. And the first thing was in just recognizing for myself how different I took the information this morning when I got what I would have considered to be bad news, if not devastating news, a year ago or 5 years ago, where I would have thought, oh my God, we're going live. We won't have the guest on. Then I would have immediately spun into like my own like warrior energy and, I'll make it an amazing show and I'll go research and find all these great topics and, do what I can to impress, everybody. And it was really amazing for me to just sit there and realize like, wow, this is what it is. It's not good. It's not bad, but it's creating more space for me to think like, how can we better connect and share some more information? And we'll see what the opportunity, now that we have this space to expand into together, what it's going to create. So space was the number one thing that came up for me. So we talk on this show about leading an expansive life, which is usually involves some form of transformation of going from a previous self to a new self. And in doing that, the number one thing that I've learned that's so important, and, if anyone out there is trying to figure out, how can I transform? How can I take the initial steps to lead a more expansive life? Not only create more room for me to expand into, but create significantly more room so that everyone I interact with can be free to be themselves without judgment, without anything else, just free to be who they are. And you'll be amazed how different you show up for the people in your life and how much your life starts to change because you've changed the perspective and you've changed the lens that you're looking through. So that was number one. Then number two, after space, was the idea and the concept that I'm hoping lands correctly with this amazing audience, which is the concept of death. And when I say death, I don't mean the end of your physical existence, but death of your previous self. So one of the things that I've had the great fortune of learning from some amazing people throughout the course of this past year is that one of the things that we create as human beings for ourselves is an identity or identities. And we start living our life based on the expectations other people have about us, based on expectations that we have because we've attached to these identities. And those can be an athlete or former athlete, a business person, a CEO, a boss, an employee, a father, a son, a spouse. All of these things are different identities that as soon as we create the I am, we create separation. And from separation, we create suffering. So it's kind of a profound thing, and I don't want to go into that portion of it today, but to start to drop the identities and start to evolve into like your truest self, you have to start to welcome the death of these former expectations and these former versions of yourself so that a new version can emerge. And one of the things that makes it so difficult is our brains are wired to keep us safe. And our brain sometimes doesn't even know the difference between a physical death and the death of an identity or something that you're carrying around, an expectation for how you think you're supposed to live. And we create strategies. Okay, we could go 10 episodes deep on this, but the ego then creates a strategy for how I'm going to live my life so that I can prove I am this thing. And it can be things like I am not enough, or I am a victim, or I am whatever. We have the choice of filling in the blank, but once we've filled in the blank, our minds scans the universe for evidence to prove the ego right. So think about that for a minute. Something that's completely made up, it's a lie in our head that we've chosen to latch onto. Our mind and ego now needs to go collect all the evidence in the world to show us that we're right. So if there's any part of you that feels less than, completely abundant, completely limitless, boundless as the being that you are, your mind's going to go and prove to you that you're right. That is the strangest thing ever, but you think about it when you were going through your childhood or wherever you were. Well, I guess we were all in childhood. But things happen. They can be the silliest of things, but they happen, and our mind starts to create identities that maybe I'm a little too loud, or I'm not seen, or I have to work really hard to be something, to get noticed, to be seen and heard. And then our ego latches onto that, and now we start playing out this role of I am, fill in the blank. And now we have this exhausting strategy. And if anyone ever wonders why life can feel exhausting at times, it's because your ego is living out this strategy to prove itself and to not welcome or to survive in the face of death, even your identity. So what was so cool about this morning, getting the news from Dave's assistant, is I realized the old version of me would have been stressed. I would have been concerned. I would have probably said like, oh my God, how could he do this to me? He knows it's a live show. What am I supposed to do? I can't just call up someone and get a new guest, And then I would have panicked. I would have had a lot of anxiety. I would have started to think about a future that I didn't want. I would have created stress. I'd probably be sweating right now, trying to wonder how I'm going to hold this together and, lead a show to a live audience. But I welcomed it as this just is. This isn't happening to me. It's just happening. So I can only assume that I'm being like promoted and protected, and this was supposed to happen. And what a great gateway to open up this conversation to our audience. Welcome everybody to jump into the conversation, ask questions. This is such an amazing vessel or container to have these kind of conversations. But it helped me see how the old version of me would have reacted and how this new version is so much more relaxed and willing to let things be the way that they are. And that in and of itself is a more expansive life. So I'm so excited to extend this conversation in a few minutes to get Joe and Hillary's thoughts on this. But one of the things that we have to become comfortable with as we transform is this idea of death. And it's something we don't like to talk about, but you have to welcome in the death of your old self to constantly allow yourself to emerge. Imagine, a caterpillar just so tied on to the fact that he's always been a caterpillar. He'll never change. He doesn't want to change. He'll just never do. He's holding on so tight. That poor thing will never experience, well, fortunately, evolution will force it to, but you get the point or the metaphor. You can welcome in this new, beautiful emergence when you let go of that tight hold that you have on yourself and life and your identity, and then be able to kind of elevate yourself, align better, and ascend with wings and start flying around. Like, what a beautiful metaphor, for what's available to us in life. But it's only available as you get comfortable and relax, lean into and allow new versions of yourself to emerge. So kind of leads me into one sort of last thought, because here's where it gets difficult. And I had this experience recently, which is why I want to share. It's somewhat, vulnerable, but, I had this experience, and I've had many of them throughout the last 5 years, kind of going through this transformation. And it's these days when you feel lost. And you feel lost and you're like, man, I've been doing so much work. I know that I'm evolving. I know that I'm becoming a better version of myself, but I feel like it's not working. things aren't going the way I feel like they should. Like, gosh, shouldn't I have by now like manifested $10 million into my lap, or shouldn't I have manifested whatever? Shouldn't things be going better than they actually are? And you start questioning and you start doubting, and you're like, oh man, maybe it's not working. And you start feeling, and you can feel, and I have felt this from time to time, this feeling of feeling lost, like, man, maybe it's not working. What happens is, again, the ego and the mind start to go, hey, this isn't safe. Remember, we used to do things differently. Let's go back. And your mind and your ego is trying to get you to hold on to that older version of yourself. And what I've learned, and this happened to me last week during a day that just felt more difficult than normal, is I sat with it and I'm like, why does it feel this way? And I felt this really strong urge that, man, you're not doing enough. You're not working hard enough. You're not putting in the hours. You're not. And I said, yeah, that's the way my old self would have reacted to this. I wonder if I could just sit with this today, be okay with it, and see how I feel tomorrow. And when I woke up, I had so much more amazing clarity about what actually needed to get done. Not just a bunch of stuff to get stuff done, but real clarity about the right people to reach out to, who to go ask for help, what to focus on, which was going to make a big, meaningful impact. And what was the big picture that I was really after in life, not these tactical things that had me feeling like maybe I wasn't doing enough. So probably the most profound thing that I've learned over the last 5 years, and it ties back a little bit to the theory of relativity from Einstein, but I don't want to get lost in that because that can be rather confusing. But it is something I've learned in transformation and in life in general, which is life is really defined by how we relate to it. So it's how we relate to ourselves, how we relate to circumstances that are going on in the external world, and how we relate to other people. And your quality, or the quality in which you're able to relate, to change, to who you're becoming, to new ways of doing things, to the people in your life who are showing you and mirroring back where you're stuck and you're not absolutely free, to yourself, and then to other people and circumstances. Everything in life is tied to how you relate to it. So if you can start to change and play with how you relate to life, opportunities, judgment, being able to let go of how you're judging things, you can welcome in, and not only welcome in these new opportunities, but you can actually start to have fun and really figure out how to be more present with them and really enjoy them, take tremendous joy in doing them, which then comes, gratitude for it. And your entire life will change because you've allowed it to change. You've kind of welcomed that death. You've created space, and you're now expanding into a new way of being. And then from that place, you realize I can go create whatever it is that I want. And I work with a lot of companies who are trying to scale, and they're trying to expand, and they're trying to grow. And where I've noticed the biggest difference in the ones that do it successfully and the ones that really embrace and scale, they don't look at revenue as what they're chasing. They don't look at profit as what they're chasing. What they're better at than most everybody else is they look at the problem that they're solving, and they say, is it a real problem? Is this something people are really struggling with? Can we help, and how can we help? And they constantly focus on how can we do it better than we did yesterday? And then as soon they're looking out over the competition, how can we make sure we're doing it better than everybody else? And now if I'm solving the problem better than everyone else can solve the problem, I'm going to start doing it at scale. And then I'm going to grow, and then I'm going to have supply and demand in my favor, and I'm going to start welcoming in and allowing more and more money to come my way because I've committed to solving the actual problem, not chase the revenue. And that's where awareness and being able to pull back out and view the world, view the lens, and do it from an expansive point of view makes so much difference. You'll start to recognize patterns, and you'll start to move in one of two directions. So here's your choice. And this is, I'll stop here, and then I can't wait to get Joe and Hillary's thoughts on this. But we will move generally in one of two directions. And so if you think back to what I was telling you about this day that I had last week, where it just felt like, man, I'm not doing enough. Maybe I'm not enough, whatever. And you have two general places you can go from there. One is you can descend into the tactical hell. So the tactical hell is all the stuff, the tactics. Am I timing the market right? Am I working on my sales pitch? What are all the tactical things that I know I'm going to give me more revenue? Or can I expand out, have the patience to really sit and think about it and ascend into the strategic alignment? So you either have the tactical hell or strategic alignment. Strategic alignment focuses on big things that you're trying to accomplish. So if you're going through a personal transformation, maybe you're seeking total freedom. Well, that's a much bigger strategic move than the tactical one of I'm trying to make $1 million. That one will lead you to what Rumi calls that furnace of stress and anxiety, whereas the other one gives you this room to just be, to zoom out and start to think about what's really important. Am I showing up better today than I was yesterday? Am I able to continue to show up so that I can focus on big strategic things, a strategic life where I only live and exist in love, find problems, solve them better than anybody else, and then do that at scale? Now I'm making an impact, and I'm being rewarded, and I'm allowing this amazing life to exist. So with that, I don't know if that was too much, but I can't wait to get your guys' thoughts. Joe, maybe I can start with you. I'd love to just hear, what's there. First, welcome back. I think it's amazing that, in Europe, you guys have the discipline and a more pulled back, scaled view to take the entire month of August off. Congratulations to you. It's a little painful not being able to talk to you as much, but I know you were having a blast. So welcome back, and would love to get your thoughts.
Sandy, that was a beautiful setup. Your thoughts for the day. I You were alluding to, I think, to me, these relationships. You said how we kind of, not the work, but how we relate to the work.
Yeah.
I just want to read you something that I'm publishing tomorrow in Thinking in Waves, in the essay. And the title of the essay is called "What is Our Primary Job?" And, everyone's a little bit different, but there's three questions that I use to sort of prompt how I show up. And you'll like this because it's so much in line with what you were talking about. So three questions that move the needle in how I pursue my own primary job are: number one, how does a better version of me show up for the process of making a decision or a choice? Number two, how can I shift from obsessing about the work to improving my relationship to the work? There's that relating that you were just talking about. And then three, to use one of my surfing analogies, where can I uncover free energy to make my primary job more enjoyable? And so that was, it was just funny since I was just writing about this and it just came to mind as you were talking. The other thing I wanted to say just before, turning this, over to Hillary for her thoughts, you were talking about the off day. And I think, you were working to, I think, if I understood you well, to get out of your head and sort of into your body, right? Like, I think that's a lot of what was going on. I think one of the things I've been kind of playing with a little bit when I'm having a bad day or I'm not doing what I think I should be doing or what I believe I'm capable of doing is asking myself, what if I'm not doing what I'm capable of doing? What if I'm not? Like, what if it ends like that? And it's not like that it will, but what it does, it gets me sort of feeling all the feelings that maybe I'm trying to avoid or not confront directly. And so I think that those they're not even bad days. I mean, they end up being the best days because they're so instructive and they're so informative. But I think finding those little prompts to get out of your head and into your body, where your heart is and where your gut is, and whether it's using breath to initiate that. But at that point, just a simple question like, yeah, what if I don't do what I'm not reaching my potential today, and just sit with that for a moment. And I think it's not going to be like that forever, but the fact that it is right now, what an opportunity to feel it fully. So those were a couple of things that came up for me in your wonderful start to this conversation. I'm so glad to be here with you and Hillary.
Yeah, thank you. I love that as always. Like, I'm so glad that we're back talking again. We can share, in all of this because, sometimes we just put so much pressure on ourselves to do that we're somehow responsible, and are generally living from a place that we have to do this to show and demonstrate that we are something, right? Which is another like identity. And a lot of times just zeroing out and realizing like some days are okay to not go get a million things done. In fact, it's probably better not to. And it reminds me of a Ralph Waldo Emerson quote that I love, but it's taken me a while to get it to really land. And it says, "The years teach much that the days will never know."
Hmm.
So the years teach much that the days will never know, meaning sometimes we have this awkward relationship with time that like today things need to be right. They need to be a certain way. And when you resist that they're not the way they need to be today, you then kind of can spiral into trying to create something that's different than the way it actually is. And if you really sit and think about that, that's like the most ludicrous thought ever. It can't be any different than the way that it is. But when you zoom out and you think, well, I can, like you said in your point number 2, I think, right? Like, how can I choose to show up a little different? That over time and over the years does create a whole new different awareness, acceptance, and reality that you get to enjoy because of the way you've been showing up. So if you don't like the way things are today, today is what you created by all the previous
Well
days,
said. Well said.
right? So
Yeah.
zoom out and think like, how do I want to finish next year? Because the years will teach you things that the days never have known, right? What?
Yes, Sandy, you remember at the Outlier Retreat,
Yeah,
Jackie was speaking about that future successful self is waiting for current you to begin. Like that was kind of that,
yeah,
that I am paraphrasing. He said it much more eloquently than that, but you're right. Yeah. I mean, today is not an accident. Like everything we've done led to exactly how today was supposed to be, right?
it is exactly the way it is.
Yeah.
You may not like it. You may, but you learn to appreciate it. This is the result of everything you've been thinking, feeling, and doing, and you have manifested exactly what you're sitting in. So
Yeah.
you should, really, it's the net positive. We didn't come here with any of this. So we're in net gain, just learning to appreciate it and then say, amazing that I have all of this. If I want more, how am I going to change the lens that I look at for what the way I'm thinking, the feelings I need to allow myself to feel, so that I can then start taking actions that are in alignment with what I really want from life. And hopefully that's a bigger picture, a feeling of freedom, curiosity, where you're going to create something incredible. I hate using that because it right now is incredible, but you know what I mean? In a human construct, like what I really want, the impact I really want to make is going to come from taking a year's approach to how I show up, being okay with the fact that it might take some time. Of course, it's going to take some time, and loving the process. So thank you for that, Hillary. I'm dying to get, your insights on this from your unique perspective.
Yes, of course. Love this, guys. I love the opportunity to sit with all of this. A couple things came up. I wrote a couple notes. So I wanted to read a little quote that came to me. I don't know. It's not mine. Okay. So it just sort of came to me. I don't know where it came from, but you can't climb to new heights holding the weight of who you used to be. And I wanted to speak to it in Sandy, what you're describing, and Joe, what you've dealt with your athletes and probably in your own personal development. And I've totally witnessed it in myself, but I can totally relate, Sandy, to what you were talking about when you're having one of those days and it is that you're doing nothing right. And all of the things that are surfacing are every single thing that your brain is an exceptional tool, and it says, oh, you're feeling this emotion that reminds you of all these, let me pull those from that vault and show you all of them, because that's what you're feeling. So let's just pull all of those out and have them flood into your present moment, because master is asking us to take a look at it. And so it's interesting to watch the brain's emotion, like the emotional response, retrieve the memories that are aligned to that emotion. And so part of something that I talk about even in the shift method that Sandy, you and I have talked about, it's all the same thing. If you can sit and see it, your pain, whatever that pain point is for you, it was, I'm not doing enough, I need to do more. And you'll notice that as you become more aware of this voice inside of you, you start to hear the mental chatter that is either destructing you or into your, what did you call it? Tactical descent into hell, tactical hell, or
Descent into tactical hell.
yes, the descent into tactical hell. And you're noticing how much maybe the voice of strategic alignment that you're referring to is not present. And that there is, we can thank the brain in those moments, not easier said than done at first. The negative gets super loud in that moment, except that should be considered as progress because you're ready to hear what is there. You're no longer blocking it off consciously. You're allowing what is in the unconscious to surface, and you're ready to face it and hold space for it. So then you can integrate. Then you can adapt it to what it needs to look like and feel like. And to Joe, your point, if you just sit and face it, those realities shrink in size. The reason they're not going away is because you're ignoring them, and the brain is saying, master, you're trying to move us into this new vision, but you're not looking at these piles over here. And so that ability to hold courageous space to see it immediately dissolves the level of emotion that they have and the grip that they carry. So I always look at this and lead this back into team development. You want to celebrate adaptability over their perfection, because that's just a wired thing that you're not perfect occurring right there. Do you allow members to have the space to release their old habits and their beliefs? And so, like you said, having more compassion for Dave's schedule, whatever's occurring for him, that's an expansion. To me, that softens your judgment, and then it actually holds space for the expansion of your wisdom to kick in. What does this clarify for me when I accept this? And I'm just, those are just some of my thoughts that came up with what you two had both shared.
Yeah, I love it. It is this sort of ebbing and flowing, right, of creating the space. You can't expand into it. If I had never created the space, I would only have one conditioned response to receiving that, which is my old self. I don't have room for this. I don't have the time. How dare you do this to me? What do I do now? And then I am now the furnace of stress and anxiety, which, I should share with the audience. This shapes my whole perspective for these talks and everything that I've learned and what I'm so passionately curious about. But I heard, maybe 5 years ago, this quote from Rumi, as I was kind of thinking there might be a lot more to life, and what could I give? Could I really show up and let my best self come out? And it was that when I chase what I think I want, my life becomes a furnace of stress and anxiety. And when I sit in silence, I realize that what I want also wants me. It's looking for me and it will find me. And he goes on to say, like, the person who can learn this learns the great secret to life. And I just felt that in my heart, like, vibrate. Like, my higher self was like nudging me, punching me in the back of the head, saying, I hope you just heard what you just heard. And I felt this, like, I have to figure out what that means. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I need to figure this out. And I kind of started living my life really curious about what could that possibly mean. I think that there's no greater gift than figuring out, like, the secret to that and figure out how we can do that in today's modern world, because it's so easy to say, like, yeah, that worked when Rumi was alive. No way it works today. Like, Rumi didn't have an iPhone. Rumi didn't have blah, blah, blah. I think it's one of those, like, fundamental things to life that's so profound it will last forever. It's our job to make sure we know how to incorporate and use it. And that's basically been the framework for me to learn everything that I've learned. And so when I was having that day, because I had created so much space and I wasn't like a slave to, like, the old world I used to live in, I could sit with it and I could actually ask myself some questions. I could be more curious about why I was feeling that way. And then I could expand out into that more ascended, aligned, strategic view. And I could say, wait a minute, what is it that I'm really curious about learning? I'm really curious about how that quote works. And it got me realizing, like, yeah, think of a year from now, continuing with this, how much, what a better position you're going to be in. Think of where you were last year. Think of where you were 5 years ago. And I could start to see, like, holy smokes, it's working. It's not working if I use the same constructs that I was using to measure success, which is everything I'm trying to get away from, right? Like, these crazy, like, identities I was holding on to. But wow, like, I'm so much further than I was, 5 years ago. And it just helped me, like, wow, really relax into it and realize when you take the more strategic view of what you really want from life, you have to also change some of the metrics. And that doesn't mean they're not important to you. It just means that you're going to allow them to come in the right priority, right? Your health, number one, your relationships, number two, and then massive abundance of wealth, but not wealth at the expense of health and relationships. So anyway, thank you. That was amazing. What else is coming up for you, Joe? Because you look like you're having even more epiphanies.
Well, first of all, I'm just loving just being a part of this conversation and listening to both of you. Sandy, going back to the difference between years and days and talking about setting the intention, creating the space. And I think what I hear from you is that you're advocating for patience and, playing the long game. It was interesting. I was just having a call with a performance person at the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee, and we were talking about the things that athletes learn when they're competing and how easily they forget when they're transitioning out of high performance sport into things like relationships and work and health and wellness after a career in sport. And this person actually said to me that a lot of top athletes are, there's actually not a lot of really good research on transition and change. But one of the things that, we keep talking about is that the elite athletes tend to sort of think transition is an event, not a process. And that is such a challenging thing to work with. But I think what you're saying also, Sandy, it's that this isn't just Olympians and Paralympians. This is all of us. And the good news is I know, in this realm of what we're talking about, I know in the last, 6, 7, 10 years of my life, when I've made a habit to sort of journal consistently, eventually over time, I see differences. When I run consistently, I see and feel differences. When I do push-ups consistently, I see those differences. And I think what we're talking about here, I think this idea of not chasing and you know welcoming of change, and welcoming of those spaces that we aspire to create. All I'm just saying is that if in the call for patience, we can actually look at a lot of areas of our life where we've experimented with this, and we've created a process for it. We know it works. So, my expanding on what you said, Sandy, why wouldn't anyone watching us right now just do it in the spirit of experimentation? Give it a try. I mean, what do you have to lose? To be patient, to sort of set the space and work very slowly towards finding a sense of compassion and kindness for yourself.
Yeah. And the only thing, just for anybody out there that's questioning and doubting this, and certainly if you don't want to do it, just say no, thank you. But the only reason that anyone would is the fear, right? We have the fear that we're not going to be okay, that for some reason it's just not going to work. And we've all felt that. We're all operating from a past hurt that's informing us of some future fear that is an illusion, but we're so convinced it's going to happen. It's probably waiting right around the corner. Our mind is always looking for it. And I want to share, right after I had this kind of epiphany last week, I heard this story, and it's amazing how these things happen. I probably would have heard it anyway, but it cemented what we're talking about. So if you need a more concrete example of zooming out and not being sucked into the tactical, zooming out into an aligned strategic future, you don't have to look any further than our good friend Abe Lincoln. So Abe Lincoln, as he set out to, at the start of the Civil War, so he looked at the North should prevail because they had far more men and they had far more resources than the South. By all means, it just meant we have more to begin with. We should win just by a numbers game. But what we need is time. And we need the time to properly train our men to fight. And we also need to find the right leaders to lead our men when it comes time. So he needed to balance the patience and the time, but also get some wins so that he could create the necessary momentum so that people would buy in, to what's going on. Well, just so happens that at Bull Run, the North gets defeated. People start to panic. And they're saying, Abe, you've got to surrender, man. This is not going well. And he then, creates a couple of wins. They win at, Vicksburg. Then they win Gettysburg. They've got some momentum. 6 months later, not enough wins. And now everyone in the North is in a panic. They're literally panicking. They're saying, you have to strike peace terms with the South. It's not going well. And he reaches a point where he drafts a letter. He drafts the peace terms. And I mean, he's working to preserve or, create something that has fundamentally changed the way the U.S. operates. So this is a big thing. But in a panic, he kind of submits, right? Succumbs to some of the pressure. He writes the peace terms. He puts them in a drawer. And then that night, he becomes so depressed in the fact that he's willing to succumb to the idea that maybe these terms, that maybe this freedom that he's fighting for is worth negotiating. And he zooms out And he says, maybe things aren't going the way that we need them to right now, but I believe so much in the resolve that this is worth fighting for, that he never, offers the peace terms. He keeps it in the drawer, and he comes out, and 1 week later, they march into Atlanta. We all know how the Civil War ends, but it's that ability to zoom out and realize what I'm fighting for, what I'm after long term is so much more important than the pressure of today. I've got to have the resolve to keep seeing it through. Maybe this is uncomfortable today, but I can get through it, and I can hold on and wait for something better by sticking to, these principles. So I don't know how that lands for you, but I was like, wow, like that is exactly what we're talking about. Something that you believe in so much, that's so much bigger than what are people saying about me today? What do people think about me? What are these little things that mean nothing in the day when you commit to being who you really are, over the year and over a lifetime? So I don't know. What's there for you guys? Oh, we're not getting audio.
Something that comes up, the good little history review lesson there for your fellow Canadians up here.
You're the true north.
The true north, yes, yes. I like to consider us allies. I don't know. I'm not going to speak on behalf of all Canadians, but I love my Americans. So something that came up, momentum born from patience lasts longer than progress born through panic. So let me say that again. Momentum born from patience lasts longer than progress born from panic.
Yeah.
And it sums up what you're describing, Mr. Lincoln, President Lincoln, freedom fighting Lincoln would have been going through perhaps in that moment. I see another thing to the Joe's point, what you were saying about creating space to give yourself the opportunity to practice stillness and reflection. Of course, we know that stillness can look like a walk, can look like paddling on the water, like Joe, that you would teach a lot of in the flow. Sandy, you could be hiking a mountain, you could be in the middle of a 29-0-29 event and having your moment of stillness. It doesn't matter where it lands. It can look differently for everybody. It's just getting to know yourself, and what will surface in those moments is so important. If you leave space for that reflection, you give acceptance, and you actually fortify your faith, and you start to accept exactly where you are. So I find that patience isn't the absence of movement forward or momentum. It's the discipline to allow that momentum to build with better purpose. I think it's vital in those athletic transitions. I agree, it's not an event. It's a bit of a process, and the earlier you can teach an athlete or a team or on a leadership team, a business team, if they understand that transition happens at all levels and at a different pace for everybody, if we can continually create these little tactics that are so vital to holding space for that reflection time, it's just so powerful.
Oh, I could not agree more. As you're talking and describing those things, it's for anyone that wants to bring this into like more grounded. You have a job and you're like, okay, guys, this is all great, but like I need to get shit done. I need a paycheck, whatever that is. The concept that Jim Collins outlines in his book of Good to Great, where he talks about the doom loop. The doom loop is exactly that descent down into tactical hell. Like, I don't like my situation. How can I manipulate it so that I feel good today, instead of pulling back, zooming out, and saying, how do I create the flywheel effect around a bigger strategy, that patience of momentum over some bigger, larger cause that I'm fighting for, and I have resolve to see it all the way through so I can make it through the bumpy day-to-day stuff. I don't have to resort to. But if you look at just the numbers, for those that need more tactical, like grounded examples, you can look all throughout companies' history. The ones that follow these tactical, feel good, big momentum, we're going to change our course today kind of actions fall into a doom loop. They get big expectations, they crash, 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 crash. which creates this cyclical need for more doom loops. The ones that commit to that flywheel effect of just building momentum, like, Joe, I'm sure you guys went through a number of different periods of great, not so great. Do we even belong, in this elite event, to putting on the gold medal around your neck, which is probably you built the best flywheel with your resolve, better than the rest of the teams, and ultimately the gold medal was it. I'm sure you had nights where it didn't feel like a gold medal was in your future.
It's really funny. I love Jim Collins and I love that book. I, when I really think about our process with my canoe partner, Scott, with whom I won the Olympics with, it didn't often feel like the momentum of a flywheel. And it's really funny, I've put up a few posts more recently about, the Olympic story. And one of the people who commented on them was the head of sports psychology for the U.S. Olympic Committee during that time, who the U.S. Olympic Committee sent to work with my canoe partner and I, because for that reason, Sandy, it didn't feel like a flywheel. We showed a lot of potential. We had gotten a lot of good results, but we were really different. And we were having a hard time managing the expectations and managing that success. But I do think, what I always tell people about what we learned from Shane Murphy, Dr. Shane Murphy, that sports psychologist. He didn't come in and identify me as an optimist, and he didn't analyze my canoe partner as being analytical and such. All he did, and you guys will love this because it's so on par with our conversation. He created a space for us to go into to drop our artillery, our weapons, to leave it at the door. He created a space that we could walk into and talk transparently with each other. And he taught us not just how to use that space, he even taught us when to use that space. Not using it at night at the end of the day after the third workout when you're tired and you just want to kill each other. He goes, no, use that space the next morning after you've had a good night's rest and you've gotten some food in your belly and you're kind of ready to articulate your thoughts to someone that you might not be happy with, and get your ears ready to listen to some commentary that may not be so flattering about yourself. So that, it is interesting kind of bringing some of these, these ideals that we learned from that. But that's all Shane did, was that he created a better space for us to go into. And we started that process about a year before the Olympics. And he taught us how to use that space on our own. He didn't need to be there for us to use it. And I think that was really powerful too.
Yeah, I love that. How about you, Hillary?
I love it. I always, when I think about when I've even talked to any athlete, Joe, I love that story so much. I love the space that it creates. You don't need me, like Dr. Murphy, let's say, is saying this. You don't need me. You need you. You need the strategic space to show up. Just even from a hormone regulation space that you said, sleep on it. Let's just cool the jets. I am so guilty of trying to take a grip on my own issues, let alone someone else's, right after we've played an entire tournament play at an elite volleyball level at 17 years old, going what can I have done better? We should all meet right after this event, whatever is occurring. And I remember what that looks like. And you just look like toddlers screaming and laughing and carrying on. It's just not effective. So creating those spaces inside of organizations, inside of teams, makes a massive difference. And clearly you're a perfect walking example of that success. It worked.
Better than everybody else.
You guys I think, have a perspective on success enough to say it was a result, but what really mattered was what we learned and the person that we became in the process. Like, I still think, even to that point, like, I'm happy to talk about my own Olympic experience and such, but, not as a way of saying, oh, do this and, you'll get the win. It's just helping. I think the whole idea, like my buy-in on the idea of helping people create their own space, is not for the winning, but it's for the people they get to become in the process. That's the real like motivation for me at this stage of life.
Yeah. I'll throw one other thing out there that just came to me, and that is patience is always on your side when you're living in the absolute truth, right? And so when you live in truth, you have patience, right? Like you can see things for what they are. They're exactly what they are. You're not trying to add in your own story. You're not trying to manipulate it. You're not trying to make yourself feel better. You're like, okay, cool. This is how it is. I want it to be this way in the future. Yeah, it's going to take some time, and you can commit to that, and you can let the truth kind of surface. But when you're not living in the truth, you need it to be different that day. You need to interpret it different. You need everyone else to think different. And it's very hard, right? You're running around crazy trying to manage the way everyone thinks around you, what they're saying. And that becomes what Rumi calls that furnace of stress and anxiety. Why bother? Like, it's such an exhausting way to live your life. Just becoming grounded and seeing things for exactly what they are. Sounds so simple. It is simple, but it's not easy.
Simple, but not easy. Yeah.
Hey, Joe, for those listening, how could they get your newsletter?
The easiest way is to go to my website, joejacoby.com. And there's a lot of prompts there to subscribe to Thinking in Waves. And if you do, just don't forget to confirm your subscription like every other email newsletter. But it's a weekly essay that I write, and very short on selling, very high on just my feelings and content. And yeah, I love doing it. But thank you.
Yeah, and value. Tons of value.
Huge
Good.
value.
I'm so glad you're a part of it, Sandy. Thank you.
Yeah, no, you and I hit it off immediately the moment we started talking about waves.
The moment we started kayaking together and surfing those little tiny
Yeah.
waves at the in Rhode Island.
Yeah, and they've been such a huge part, just waves in general, whether it was when I was surfing in Costa Rica, horrible, terrible, just getting torn up by the sea. And a feeling came over me that felt like words, but I didn't hear anything. It just said, just accept the wave. Quit trying to surf it, accept it. And in that moment, I transformed from being the guy getting pounded by the waves where I was trying to do all the work to welcoming the fact that that free energy existed and just learning how to stand up. And that's been a massive metaphor for my whole life. And then a great, vivid dream about riding this gigantic wave, being scared to death and realizing that if I just breathe, just allow that wave to carry me to the shore, it's going to be an amazing life. So no wonder we hit it off there.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Well, Hillary and Joe, it's always a pleasure speaking with you, but today in particular has been like a very energizing, grounding conversation. So thank you so much for your time. Thanks for tuning in. I know that everyone tuning in, there was so much there for them to take. Hopefully you choose wisely on what you want to take away, integrate and apply to your own life so that you can create the space necessary to expand into and hold space for other people and live a truly more expansive life. So thank you guys very much. Love you guys always, and look forward to our next conversation. Dave will be joining us on the 28th of October, so we'll get that out. But I can't wait to tell him how we use the space that he provided us. He'll be happy about that.
Nice.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for watching an Expansive Life Conversation. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. See you next week.